Hey, good morning to those of you out there on the West Coast. Good afternoon to you, those of you here on the East Coast with me. It's kind of a quasi nice day out there, but always get lots of energy from anything that's just not pure rain. rain. Rain's fun a little bit, but maybe doesn't give me so much energy. Hey, I just want to give a quick tip for those of you showing up early and on time. I appreciate that you do. And I like to give a tip for success whenever I get a moment. There's a book out there, and I wish I had it here, but I only listen to it on an audiobook, but it's called The One Thing. And the one thing is this really awesome concept of look at whatever you're doing and pick the one thing that if you get it done, it'll make everything else easier or unnecessary. Think about this. What's the one thing you could do today that if you do it will make everything else easier or unnecessary? What could you do this week or this month, right? What could you do before the end of 2025 that would make 2026 easier or a lot of the things you thought you might have to do unnecessary, right? And so go ahead and put those things in there. Go ahead and pay attention to that because it's a great way. And it's what I'm going to be talking about a little bit on today's training. So let's get started with planning for FY 2026, federal market success. And actually, I should have put there quasi CY 2026, right? And I'll talk about fiscal year and calendar year because there's a difference there in particular, right? The fiscal year is what the federal government basically does. We all have fiscal years, but the fiscal year ends tomorrow, right? On September 30th, and we're starting the new federal fiscal year. And that's cool. That's their spending year that we're going to be trying to get contracts out of, et cetera. But for us, we tend to have a calendar year as a fiscal year as small businesses. You know, we just choose the end of our year as 12/31 and December 31st, right? And so today I want to be talking about planning out your 2026, beginning with looking at the fiscal year 2026 for the government. One of the things that's just really important when you think about anything you're trying to do, right? You have to set a goal in order to be able to guide all of your activity. But if you do set a goal, then there's a really good chance that if you do the activity necessary, you're going to achieve the goal that you set for yourself. And that's no different for 2026 revenue goals, which we'll be talking about. If you set that goal, then your sales goal will go along with it. You just have to reverse engineer the work that is necessary to achieve the goal that you set for yourself. In this particular case, we're going to be talking about a revenue goal. And one of the other things I'm going to talk about today, but it's important, you don't want to just set a number. Hey, I'm going to make $5 million next year or $1 million, whatever it is, right? You don't want to set a number, but not have an understanding of where it's going to come from. You know, hey, I'm going to make $5 million next year. And then you're surprised either that negatively that you didn't hit it, or even to me, a negative, which is you hit the 5 million, but you have no idea how you got there. You got it, you know you won this contract or something, but you can't reverse engineer that back and see where it started. Who did I talk to? I'll give you a quick little example. I remember in my last company, the first government contract we got, it was a subcontract, but I remember where it came from because it was our first entry into the federal revenue coming out of nonprofit and commercial that we were doing. And that came from us having lunch or coffee with an old high school buddy who said, oh, I know a friend of mine who does is in a government contracting. I don't know if they do SharePoint or not, but I'll make an introduction. He introduced us to him, this guy Ted, and when we met Ted, he goes, oh yeah, I get asked about SharePoint, but we don't really do that. I'm happy to let you guys do that. So I could reverse engineer our win all the way back for all of my VA contracts, which were very lucrative when I was in my last company. All of it was tied back to this one path. And that's what I mean by it wasn't a surprise to me how we were winning. We knew exactly how we were winning. And so we were able to kind of repeat it. That's why I don't want you to be surprised in 2026. Even if you actually hit a revenue goal, don't be surprised by it. I want you to determine how you're going to get there and then follow that path and know exactly how you got there. Okay, so and I put here a couple other notes, but this goes back to failing to plan is planning to fail, right? If I sit there and just get in my car and start driving out there, then it's going to look like I'm busy. If I have no destination, no goal set, it's going to look like I'm busy, but I'm going nowhere fast. I call this constructive procrastination. Yes, of course I need to be driving towards my goal wherever I'm going. But if I didn't set a destination, I'm just doing busy work. But it's necessary. Sure, you need to drive, but you're not driving in the right direction. You don't know if that activity, which is good activity, is the right good activity. When you have a destination, though, you're really going to sit there and determine what's necessary going out there. So that's what we're going to be talking about today as we plan for fiscal year and calendar year success for you and for your company. I'm going to break today's training up into 3 sections. First thing I want to do is talk about determining your dollar goals. So literally, that's the money. The second thing is determining your sales pipeline. So that's leading to the money. And then the last thing I want to leave you with are key performance indicators or ways to measure your company in 2026 and even in 2025 as we're wrapping it up. How can you measure your company to know how you are doing towards that goal you're trying to achieve? And I'll talk more about that in the last slide. But that's how we're going to talk about that today. If that sounds good, say 2026 rocks in the chat. Let's wake it up. Also, by the way, just as a quick side note, I am trying something different where I'm doing this thing called pairing on LinkedIn, where I'm live here on my own personal profile. I'm also restreaming onto the GovCon Chambers profile page out there. And I'm looking to do more of this as I try to reach more and more businesses out there so that I can reach more people and train them, and I can bring you and them together to be able to network and meet each other. So I'm excited about that. I see some of you are out there on that pairing side. So make sure you engage. Let me know you're there. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonald. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. I am founder of Call Plan AI, and I want to welcome you to my federal sales training where I provide tips for success in the federal market for people like you. I spent 20 years in the federal market myself as a small business owner after I got out of the Army. And since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. When we follow a process A to Z, we have repeatable, predictable results. This is what I want for you. I want 2026 to be predictable. I want you to have repeatable processes you can follow that lead to the goals that you set for yourself. If you haven't connected with me on LinkedIn, connect with me or follow me on LinkedIn. I'd love to have you in there. It's a way for us to build our network, and you can engage with everybody else who's in the chat. All those people saying 2026 rocks are probably open to connecting. And then make sure you subscribe to my newsletter, Government Contracting Success Newsletter. It's the largest GovCon newsletter on LinkedIn by far. Join 26,000 other people. We're growing faster than SBA, than DoD, and it's because we put out content that we think you would value. For example, today's newsletter that went out is about USDA and how to navigate USDA. And this is in particular especially important since USDA just cut their whole OSDBU shop down to one person. Now one person's in charge at the top level for the 11 billion in contract dollars that are out there. That's kind of crazy. So I wanted to be able to make it easier for you to navigate. I put a bunch of people's names, etc. All right, and then one last thing on this page is tomorrow's training. If you haven't signed up for it, go ahead and join us. I think there's like 150 people joining us. And tomorrow's about how to reach that $100,000 goal in subcontracting. And this is going to be something I'm going to lean in heavily into 2026. If you're familiar with my training, I do a lot of training, and it's valuable, frankly, even up into billion-dollar companies. I train small businesses, but as I go forward, I really want to double down on teaching subcontracting because there's 350,000 small businesses, or roughly in the federal space at any given point, registered to sell to the government, but only about 50 or 60,000 have prime contracts. That means 300,000 are either not making money or doing it through subcontracting. I want to provide a lot more training on how do I land subcontracts on my path to prime contracting. So go ahead and register for that tomorrow. Okay, so let's talk about determining the dollars. I've got it broken up into 2 slides. One is, and it's funny when I do these slides, I can't see my words, but basically one's understanding the number and the other is understanding the people is the next slide. So as we go forward into 2026, I want to give you these tips for how you can plan for your success in 2026. And then we'll talk as I go through this training on what you need to do. So the first thing you need to do is determine what you expect your 2025 revenue will end up at. Let's say this is the number you report to the IRS saying, hey, this company has earned this much money, right? And so for today's example, I'm going to say it's 1.2 million. I like 1.2 million because if you divide it by 12, it's $100,000 a month, and that makes my example easy. But let's just say 2025, I'm going to wrap up with 1.2 million. The reason I want you to do this is because the second bullet, determine your 2026 revenue goal. Again, what are you going to report to the IRS in January or whatever, 2027, about how much money you made in 2026? I want you to make a reasonable goal for 2026. I don't want you to go from 1.2 to 5 if you really have no real traction or something. So for me to grow the company from 1.2 million to 2.4 million, 100% growth at that level, that's not unrealistic. So I set that goal. One of the things I like saying about setting a revenue goal for 2026 is don't fixate on the annual goal. Set that goal, like I just set my goal for 2026, that I'm going to bring in 2.4 million. But what I really am going to be striving for is a monthly recurring revenue. This just means how much money am I billing out to the federal government or to subcontractors, whatever it is. How much money am I making basically every month? And in this case, if you take 2.4 million divided by 12 months, you have 200,000, right? And so my monthly recurring goal, or MRR, is $200,000. The reason this is very important is because, and I'll show you more in a second, but because that's the number you want to track. Don't fixate on the annual goal. All you want to do is to keep increasing the amount of billable activity you have or revenue you have on a monthly basis. If you fixate on the monthly, the yearly will take care of itself. So I've set the revenue goal for 2.4 million for next year. That's our first goal. That's our first thing we have to set because it determines everything else we do in our company, all the way down to the number of phone calls we make to federal buyers or to teammates, et cetera. Set that goal. You should be able to do that today because it doesn't even matter what goal you set. Just use a random number. If you're at $1 million, for you to do 100% or less is totally fine, right? If you start getting above 5 million, maybe 20 to 40% growth rate. Doesn't matter what you choose, just choose it so that you can start working on everything else. The third main bullet I have here, the next dollars that you got to pay attention to is your sales goal. So your 2025 and 2026 sales goal. The reason I say 2025 and 2026 is because selling in September of 2026 is too late to be earning revenue in 2026. Because imagine that you sell in 2026, let's say September, you land a deal, September 2026, you land a deal, and maybe you start in October, and then you work for a month, and then you submit a bill, and it comes in like January of the next year. So that's not 26 revenue. That's why it's really important that you're starting to sell in October 2025 and trying to land deals even through the end of 2025 that will start generating that monthly recurring revenue that we talked about. So I set a goal of $24 million for my sales goal. I want to tell you how I got there because it is just a formula that you can mimic. By the way, I put here calculator, if you see that. If I get enough people, like 50 people who ask for a calculator, I'll build a calculator that automatically does all this for you. You just plug a couple of numbers in and the rest of it will automatically come out and it'll spit it up as like a PDF that you can put up on your wall or something. But if you're interested in that, just put calculator into the chat or the comments and I'll get that built. Okay, so I set the goal for 24 million because of the two bullets that you see right below that. I need to know what's my average period of performance. So for me, I did service-based contracts. I have a 5-year period of performance, 1 base year, 4 option years. That's pretty normal for me, for services, especially IT type stuff. And so because of that, I'm going to take 1.2 million. This gets a little numbers, so just pay attention to the numbers. Actually, let me make myself small and this a little bigger. Keep in mind that 2025, I made 1.2 million. So 2026, I want 2.4. Well, really that I'm only trying to get 1.2 million more. We call that net new dollars or something, right? I want to get 1.2 million. That's why here in the period of performance, then you're looking at 1.2 million times 5 years equals $6 million. And so that's my my main true sale goal that I'm trying to get. But the next bullet shows my win rate. How many proposals do I win out of the number that I said? And I'm saying 25% is a good average number for you to use. If you don't know what your true number is, then just put 25%, because you should be trying to get 25%. That is a reasonable win rate. And by the way, you can up or lower, raise or lower that number to your company's thing, but 25% is a good number here. So I take this $6 million and multiply it by 25% or 4. And now that's how I got my sales goal of 24 million. So if I strive to try to win 24 million and I win 1 out of 4 contracts, then I'm going to get 6 million. And if I divide 6 million by 5-year period of performance, I'm going to have 1.2 million. So this is what's great about the replay. You can go back and walk through that. I've also done at least 50 trainings just on this topic alone, where you can see how I train it differently, where I use handouts, etc. One other thing I want to talk about on dollars are people. People represent dollars, because for the most part, let's say we're in the service side business, we're billing out people's hourly time material, or billable rate, etc. And I got another thing on a couple of slides forward, I think, that I'll talk about. But here in 2025, what I'm saying is that if the average person working for me makes $100 an hour, not makes $100, is billable to the government at $100 an hour, that's roughly $200,000 a year. $200,000 a year into 1.2 million, that was the 2025 revenue, says I got 6 people working for me that are out there billing, right? This is an average numbers for example purposes, right? But you get the idea. What's the billable rate people have? And you divide that and you'll figure out the number of people. The reason this is important is because in 2026, I want to add $1.2 million. And if I'm going to add $1.2 million and the average billable person is bringing in 200,000, 1.2 divided by 200,000 is 6 more FTEs. And that's why it's really important for you to kind of understand these things. You look at it from the sales goal, and then you look at it from the people as well. The reason I like people is because you start seeing where will they work. It's not just this mythical contract I'm going to win, but where could I place these people so they're doing good work for my teammates or for my customers, which I guess is the same thing, but I meant the federal buyer, right? Hopefully that makes sense. Again, if you want that calculator, let me know. If I get enough people say it, I'll build it. I have to build it. It'll be a tool that I build. And so I want to build it outside of a spreadsheet. I want it to be like one of those mortgage calculators you see on the internet. Okay, so the other thing I said is, where are you getting this money from? You set the goal a minute ago on the previous slide of saying, okay, this is the revenue and sales goals I have in dollars and FTEs, but where are you getting it? When you move forward into 2026, again, don't let your revenue surprise you. Determine where you're going to get your money from. So first thing is, how much are you going to get from prime contracting and how much are you going to get from subcontracting? If you're a company that's not doing any prime contracting right now, then I would just set 100% for subcontracting. If you're a company that's got a few prime contracts, then maybe set a goal of like 60 sub, 40 prime. You can set whatever number you want, but I will tell you it is easier to get on somebody else's team and subcontract than it is to prime contract, until you start getting bigger and bigger, right? And you have more past performances that really win you those contracts easier. But anyways, you determine that. How much are you going to get from the prime? How much are you going to get from the sub? I tend to like that whole idea of a 60-40 or 70-30 split. And then the second bullet here is you determine which agencies am I getting this money from. This is really important, because if I know that I'm getting this much from priming and this much subbing, then the priming means I have to go find opportunities that are at a particular agency so I drive forward. Don't try to sell to everybody. You won't be able to build relationships. Relationships are how you generally hear about opportunities. I saw David Waltz is in here. He's one of the Navy buyers, small business professional over there. He's constantly in here saying, here's this opportunity, this opportunity. Imagine if you were engaging with him on a regular basis and you start hearing about opportunities. He introduces you to a sister agency somewhere else, or a sister command in the Navy somewhere, right? You're able to build on that. But if you try to sell to the Navy, the Army, the Department of Education, everywhere else, it's hard to do that. So pick an agency or two, right? And say, this is where I'm getting my money. This is a really hard, disciplined thing people need to do, is determined to get their money from this territory, like the Navy, right? Imagine if my territory was Chicago. I can't go to New York to make my sales. I have to get them from Chicago. Well, when I say pick an agency, it's the same kind of thing. You're giving yourself a territory and you're saying, I can't go anywhere else, so I'm going to get the money there. And then the last thing is, if you're going to subcontract, you want to be able to determine how much is coming from largest and how much is from small business. If you're fairly brand new and you don't have a lot of experience, don't have a lot of relationships, stay away from larges. They're the hardest group to work with. Stay away from them. There's so many small businesses doing 5, 10, 20, $30 million a year that can have room for you to come on in, right? But you need to make that same determination. When you say, I'm going to prime this much and sub this much, and you're going to sub 70%, you want to determine which companies are going to be those companies that you're going to get that money from. If you don't know that, that's totally okay. You can start working towards that. That should be one of your first goals for October, let's say, is lock that down. And then you spend the next 11 months really trying to work it. Okay, hopefully that made sense. Where here you're trying to determine, I determine the dollars. Now I determine where are those dollars coming from. This goes back to don't let it be a surprise to you. Hey, I wanted to pause for a second and thank Voltron. They are the sponsor for our LinkedIn Lives, YouTube Lives that we're doing. I'm able to do this for the next year because of the Voltron and the generosity of their company and Mac, their CEO, who believes in what I'm doing and putting this information out to industry and wants to support it. Really appreciate that. Check them out. They're an AI proposal writing firm. They accelerate your proposals and win you more work. I'm really excited to talk more about this, and I will over the next months. And really introduce you more to Voltron. But you can check them out right now at Voltron.ai. Throw into the chat, would you, a quick little thanks, Voltron. Let them know you appreciate their support on what we're all trying to do. Okay, so let's move into determining the pipeline, your sales pipeline numbers. If I look at my revenue numbers, it's like, great, I want $1.2 million or I want $200,000. What does that mean in sales? What does that mean in opportunities? If I back up for 1 second, just to make sure we're all on the same page, your sales pipeline, doesn't matter what tool you use, but imagine a spreadsheet. It's got the title of the opportunity, and it's got a bunch of other fields, and it's got the amount and the due date. Let's say the date the RFP is going to drop, go out there. And so what you want to do is to make sure you have enough rows, enough opportunities that are going to lead towards those revenue goals, sales and revenue goals that you have set for yourself. And so the way I want you to look at your pipeline is in 3 different ways here. First thing is total contract value. So that means if you have the column that is the value of the opportunity and they all add up to a certain amount, you need that amount to be added up to at least 24 million, based on my example of 1.2 million, right? And that goes back to that sales goal times your win rates, and now you've got 24 million. And so that's a really important thing to pay attention to is, do I have enough contract value that's in there? One rule that I have for myself, and I would encourage you to adopt it as well, is no opportunity in my pipeline can ever count for more than the net new revenue goal. So remember, I'm saying in 2026, I want to go from 1.2 million to 2.4 million. So the net new revenue goal is 1.2 million. That means if I come back to my pipeline, no opportunity can count for more than that. I can have a $50 million opportunity in there and go after it, and that's exciting, but it only counts as 1.2 when I'm looking at my pipeline, right? When I win it, it's going to count as 50 million. But when I'm looking at my pipeline and I'm being conservative in my estimates, I'm saying that thing only counts for that much. And the reason this is really important is because then it tells me how many opportunities do I need. How many opportunities do I need to get at 1.2 million maximum value there if I want to reach 24 million? And that's 20 opportunities minimum. And so I want to have at least 20 opportunities in my pipeline. One little sidebar, I would go to FPDS this week and find expiring contracts for, let's say January through June or something. And you should be able to find 20 opportunities that relate to what you do, especially in services, and get them into your pipeline, and then find teammates or decide whether you're going to prime it and start pursuing it. But look at your opportunities. The other thing is don't have too many. If you've got more than 50 opportunities, you got too many. You can't possibly, a small business could never possibly chase those opportunities. And so every extra one that's in there beyond what you actually need is a distraction. All right, sidebar there. So the number of opportunities and the total value of those opportunities are the first two you want to track. The third thing you want to track, and this goes back to subcontracting in particular, is you want to make sure that you're looking in there and you've got prime teaming partners. You don't want to have a bunch of opportunities that are in there listing you as the prime contractor. If I have an opportunity and I go find ABC company who's agreed to put me on their team, that goes into my pipeline, but they are the prime contractor. I want you to make sure you have at least 6 teaming partners in there. For this example, do you see how on the slide I put 6 FTEs? If I know that I want to grow my company, my staff from 6 FTEs to 12, then I'm going to add 6 FTEs out there, right? And if I'm going to add 6 FTEs, then I want to find 6 companies where I'm subbing under them, where maybe I can really build a relationship and count on each one of them to deliver an FTE. This is just a way to break it down. I've done a ton of training. You can go back and explore that more on, but hopefully that makes sense, right? You're looking at your pipeline. By the way, if I build that calculator, it'll have all these numbers in. So it'll tell you exactly what your company needs based on your revenue goals. All right, last thing, and I'm kind of running out of time here, is the KPIs. KPIs are very important because you have leading and lagging indicators of your success. So when you look at your revenue at the end of 2026, that's a lagging indicator of you going after your goals, right? You're going to see that you hit it or you missed it, but it's lagging. When you report your taxes, that's a lagging indicator or something, right? Leading indicators are all the activity that happens before the end of 2026 in the revenue, right? So you want to be looking at as many things as you can. One that I had in here is your monthly recurring revenue. Don't get overly fixated on the annual, but get fixated on every month we need to be increasing by 5,000, 6,000, 10,000, whatever it is, right? The next thing is FTEs. Same thing. Every month I need to be going from 6 to 7 to 8. As long as I'm doing that, I'm doing well. I don't need to go from 6 to 12 instantly. The third thing I have here is proposals, right? You need to submit enough proposals out there that are going to come back. If you win 1 out of 4 opportunities that you submit or proposals that you submit, then you need to make sure that you're submitting 4 times as many as you need for your goal, your sales goal. And so that's something you can measure. You can't take, let's say you need 20, let's just say 20 proposals you need to submit in order to win enough contracts to hit your goals. If 20 is the number, you can't wait till next May or June and drop them all then, because it's too late. Even if you did win, they would eat up the year. So you need to be measuring that on a monthly basis, looking at this saying, am I writing proposals, winning proposals, ones that are really about what you sell and are great at? Are we writing proposals on a monthly basis? We don't need to write 20. We just need to write 2 or 3 or 4. And we can be subcontracting on 75% of them, right? Being a subcontractor is totally fine. You're just not going to have to deal with the administration of a contract if you win, but revenue is still revenue. And it starts with the proposal. The opportunities in the pipeline. I talked about the number of opportunities in the dollar. You want to be tracking that. You want to get to the number of opportunities in the dollar October at the latest, at the very latest. If you don't do it in October, then you're saying to yourself, I don't plan on hitting it in 2026, right? Anything else you find in November, December, January should be extra. You can keep adding, but get the minimum number of opportunities into your pipeline in October. And then the last thing is strategic relationships. The way you're going to win, especially small businesses, let's say under 5 million, the way you're going to win and achieve your goals is by having strategic relationships. And here I put strategic prime relationships. This means people who are committed to you being on their team. When you measure that, you want to start at 0 and work your way up and be very critical about who fits into that. And when I say critical, have a clear criteria, but you're going to go from 1 relationship to 2 to 3 to 4. And you can manage those relationships when you get rid of a lot of the extra busy meetings and focus really a lot of energy on these people and those relationships. Okay, I know this is really fast. Again, put calculator in the chat if you want me to build that thing. But here's what I want you to remember from today's training. First off, determine your 2026 revenue goal. You need to do that today or tomorrow. It should not go beyond it. It's an easy number for us to pick, right? The second, we're not Boeing. We don't have to overly think this. I want 5 million. I want 1 million. Anything you say is fine as long as it's reasonable. The second thing is backfill your supporting numbers. All those other numbers I gave you about what's your sales goal, number of FTEs, et cetera. Backfill those numbers so you know what needs to be done to hit the goals that you're setting. And the last thing is, if you want me to help you and give you an automated way of putting this information together, let me know. It probably take me about a week to build, but I'm happy to do that. All right, we're out of time. Remember, government contracting, it's not a secret. It's just a process. Part of the process is ending meetings on time. So I am out of here. Have a great day.